it's Chi-Town, it's Bears on the flight. Let me go tune in to Keek on the mic. He gon' make sure we get our news and highlights. When you get on YouTube, you better hit the likes.
Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears are once again connected to a very unexpected trade candidate. Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Bears fans, make sure you also do me a huge favor by also hitting the like button on today's episode of Keek on the Mic. Bears fans, before I go any further with today's episode of Keek on the Mic, I want to give a huge shout out to the sponsor of today's video, and that is BetUS. As always, Bears fans, you guys can actually head over to betus.com and use promo code YouTube150 for a 150% deposit bonus up to $2,000 to bet on the Chicago Bears all season long. The Chicago Bears are on a 3-game winning streak, looking for win number 4 in a row when they head to Washington to take on the Commanders. They are currently a 2-point favorite to beat Washington in this weekend's highly anticipated matchup. So I already placed my bet on the Chicago Bears to get their 4th straight win. I'm against the Washington Commanders this week, and you guys can do the same exact thing by using promo code YouTube150. All right, Bears fans, we've been having a lot of conversations over the past couple of days, over the past couple of weeks leading up to the November 5th trade deadline, and I think things are starting to get serious. I personally feel that Ryan Poles is not going to sit still at the trade deadline. We all know how aggressive our GM is here in Chicago, and I think he is going to make an aggressive move to really help this football team not only make a push for the playoffs as soon as this season, but maybe even make a push to win the NFC North this season. Remember what Ryan Poles said when he first became the general manager of the Chicago Bears. He said, we're going to take the North and never give it back. And we have been the laughingstock in our division over the last couple of years as Ryan Poles has reshaped and rebuilt this roster. Now it seems that the Chicago Bears are finally in a position. And I know the NFC North is tough, but it seems like they are finally in a position, sitting at 4-2, to finally make a push to take the NFC North and never giving it back. So yes, I do expect Ryan Poles to be aggressive at the November 5th trade deadline. And we talked about so many different scenarios. Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, maybe an interior offensive lineman. But Pro Football Focus actually thinks the Chicago Bears are going to take a calculated big swing at this name that, to me, could also really help the Chicago Bears make a push for the playoffs and maybe the NFC North as soon as this season. And that is edge rusher Carl Granderson from the New Orleans Saints. This is what Pro Football Focus had to say. After starting 2-0, the Saints have plummeted to 2-5, looking like a team in desperate need of a rebuild. Since it's looking like an uphill battle to contend in 2024, moving an asset like Granderson would be wise. Over the last 3 years, Granderson has quietly become one of the more solid edge rushers in the NFL. His run defense has been a calling card, but he's honed his pass rush in 2024. Granderson's 29 pressures are tied for 6th among edge rushers, and his 17.2% pass rush win rate is tied for 12th. The Bears would be a perfect fit. Bears fans, I definitely would not hate the move for a guy like Carl Granderson, and this would be such a Ryan Poles and a Chicago Bears move. And when you look at a player like Granderson, he definitely fits on what the Bears are looking for when they're looking for edge rushers to add to the Chicago Bears defense. For one, he's a really good athlete with great size, staying at 6'5", 261 pounds. He's already on an established long-term contract. He actually signed a 4-year, $52 million extension last year with the New Orleans Saints. So he's in year 2 of that long-term contract. So if the Bears were to land a guy like Granderson, they would have long-term control, pairing him with defensive end Montez Sweat for the next couple of years. And since the start of 2023, Granderson has really been on a tear as an edge pass rushing specialist with 11.5 sacks and 87 total pressures since the start of 2023. And once again, he is highly effective getting after the quarterback. And I think playing under a defensive coordinator like Eric Washington could really take a guy like Granderson to the next level. A little bit more on Carl Granderson. He's 27 years old, so still a very, very young player. And to me, I know the first question a lot of people will ask, like, well, Keek, why would the New Orleans Saints actually do this? If they just extended a guy, he's still very young, he's highly effective. Wouldn't the Saints just want to keep a guy like Granderson as maybe part of their rebuild? Yes, they could very well decide to keep a guy like Granderson. I think he's an excellent player. But at the same time, if the Saints are going to look long-term here, right? They're sitting at 2-5. And if they can get pretty decent draft capital from the Chicago Bears, especially if Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears agree to maybe take on some of that massive 4-year, $52 million contract extension. I believe he got $37.5 million guaranteed in that extension from the Saints. So if Ryan Poles can take on some of that contract, I think the New Orleans Saints will be like, you know what? We're in a cap crunch anyways. We need more money to spend. We need the draft capital to kind of rebuild here. And they already have some other pieces, guys like Alvin Kamara, even though he's an older player, but they definitely already have some pieces. Maybe if the Bears give him a second or third round pick, maybe the Saints are like, you know what, between that and the Bears taking on his huge contract extension, we're in a salary cap crunch anyways. We need the picks. Let's go ahead and trade a guy like Carl Granderson. We all know what he could be for this defense. And I know there's a lot of people out there saying, hey, just go out and get Max Crosby. Just go out and get a guy like Myles Garrett. Both of those guys would possibly cost multiple first round picks and maybe even multiple day 2 picks as well to bring those two players to Chicago, and rightfully so. Max Crosby, Myles Garrett are generational. But I also think a guy like Carl Granderson would get the job done here in Chicago. Look at what the Chicago Bears defensive line has been able to do over the first half of the season. They have had 18 sacks, highly effective getting after the quarterback, led by Montez Sweat, obviously Javon Dexter, Andrew Billings, Darrell Taylor has been really good. Austin Booker has continued to develop into a really solid player for this Bears defensive line as well. So I just think Carl Granderson would just be the perfect addition to an already stout and really good defensive line that we have here in Chicago. To most people, it wouldn't be a super sexy move because once again, when you have names like Max Crosby and Myles Garrett being thrown around, I can understand that a name like Carl Granderson would be like, oh, I don't really want him. But at the end of the day, this is a guy that can come here to Chicago and make this defensive line better. And once again, when you're playing under a really good defensive coordinator and a really good defensive line coach in Eric Washington, and when you're playing alongside a guy like Montez Sweat, Carl Granderson will come here to Chicago and see a lot of those one-on-ones. And once again, just like Pro Football Focus said, he has a 17.2% pass rush win rate, which is tied for 12th in the National Football League. And he's had 29 pressures this season, which are tied for 6th among edge rushers in the National Football League this season. So once again, highly effective getting after the quarterback. He's a little bit of a liability against the run, but for me, I'm just looking at an edge rusher that can get to the quarterback at a high level, and that's exactly what Granderson would be able to do here for the Chicago Bears defense. So once again, we don't know exactly what Ryan Poles is thinking or what he's actually going to do as the trade deadline nears on November 5th. But what I do know is that I don't think Ryan Poles is going to stay still. Even when the Bears were rebuilding, he was tearing down the roster, he was still being aggressive, making bold moves for Chase Claypool, for Montez Sweat. So I think since the Bears are in a position at 4-2, not only to make a push for the playoffs, but maybe possibly be in contention for the NFC North as well, I think Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears are going to make a big swing and be aggressive. I think Carl Granderson would be the perfect fit for the Chicago Bears. So Bears fans, as always, before I let you guys go, let me ask you guys this. If the Chicago Bears make a move before the trade deadline on November 5th, would you guys be okay with Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears trading for edge rusher Carl Granderson? Let me know down below in the comment section. But other than that, Bears fans, make sure you continue to hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms, and make sure you share this episode of Geek on the Mic with every single Bears fan you know. Once again, make sure you guys also head over to betus.com and use promo code YouTube150 for 150% deposit bonus up to $2,000 to bet on the Chicago Bears to beat the Washington Commanders this weekend. But other than that, I'll be back for an all-new Bears podcast right here on Geek on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and as always, bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Geek on the Mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Geek on the Mic. You can go and subscribe, cause I be on it right.